Hello everyone, now you will hear a brief retelling of the film. There is nothing to lose enjoyable viewing. Negbim lives happily with his wife N and holds a high position in an advertising agency. One employee offers the signature cupcake kolobok, which leaves brown clumps behind, and it doesn't look like chocolate at all like the advertiser intended.
What does it remind you of?
Excrement?
Zach. Remnants, excrement.
The wife reminds the ethnic that they are going to the Philharmonic in the evening, and also that in a week their sister will come to them with her boyfriend. Nick went to the boss, whose office looked more like a history museum. The new exhibit is not arms, side-by-side intimate intimacy, and this is noticeable by the huge log uniarm between the legs. The boss asks him to replace him today at a meeting with an important client. A date with his wife had already been cancelled, but then the client wanted to postpone the meeting. Pernick will make an end surprise. He's in a good mood, and on the way home he bought a bouquet. A girl Florida is flirting with him at home. Nick heard some noise. He grabbed a knife, replaced it with a spatula, then with a spray bottle. But in the end, he stopped at a candlestick. In the bedroom, he hears the bed creak and sees his wife riding on her lover from behind. Downstairs, he found the boss's cufflinks, so they wanted to detain him at work so that he could be horned again? In shock, without realizing it, he drove into the gangster area and stopped in the middle of the street. Then a gun stuck in his face. The criminal demands to hand over the car keys and wallet, but there is no nickname on him.
The poor guy reacts, "You chose the wrong person entirely."
Nick Dolgazou, and blocked the door. The man rushes at high speed through narrow streets, demolishing garbage cans on his way and exposing himself and his passenger to mortal danger. Nick threw away his wallet and sprayed the thief in the eyes. He never stopped and drove out of the state. Poor Terence was already crying. He found himself in a hopeless situation. The driver apparently was a maniac who would be buried somewhere in the desert. Finally, they stopped at some diner. Taz got his gun back, but after a long trip, he doesn't feel his ass at all. No one drives past this wilderness, and Terence has nothing left. How to return to his kidnapper? His companion thief doesn't laugh and pointed a gun at him, but now he feels sorry for himself and is crying. Whose problem is wrong? The waitress asked to pay right now without any problems, Nick said, and reached for his wallets, but he had already thrown it away. Terence helped him. Nick is now kind of dependent on the thief because he doesn't have the gas money to get back. But then he remembered there was another credit card left in the car. They raced to the car and fought in the streets. Nick's fighting skills made Terence laugh, but the man is healthy and can handle it. Not so simple. As a result, both received a pan on the head from the waitress, and the card turned out to be expired. You got your horns pointed out, shrewd Terence, and you definitely killed that freak, so now you're hiding in the desert. But no, he just left in silence. Terence would conclude that his wife didn't respect him. But he and his wife do what they want. She obeys him in everything despite treason. For that, he definitely hit her. Nick calmly listened and attacked Terence again. Sad Nick forgot about his wife and poured gasoline on his feet. Meanwhile, Terence decided to rob a local store. The thief took the keys. Nick demanded that Taran roll up the money, but immediately stepped on the gas when the salesman opened fire on the car. Not only that, the market has gone after them and continues to fire at the robbers. A policeman was driving them. Nick is determined and, risking his life, he turns Finn so that the cop crashes into the hillbilly car. But he doesn't intend to go further with Terence. The idiot will soon be arrested, but he himself pray. And Kavinit's social inequality in everything. They say, it's easy for Nick to teach him when he has a 50-inch TV. Then Nick suggests at least turning on his head and putting it on her mask so you don't get recognized. And there's nothing stupider than abandoning such eateries for a couple of acres. Is it possible to rob once and for a big one? His boss, for example, keeps a bunch of money in his office. There are only 2 guards at night. He also knows the code to disable the alarm. And then Nick had a bad idea. He will rob the scoundrel boss in the safe lies $600, maybe $700, $1,000. I also want to participate in this adventure. The sheriff is sure that he encountered road bandits who have already committed a bunch of similar crimes. One white, the other black, no doubt about it, it's them. Davis's repeat offenders, meanwhile, continue to renovate the shops. Terrence was teaching gasoline in the salon, and Nick admitted that it was coming from his feet. The thief found a video camera and spotted his companion's wife. And it turns out that Terrence is good at engineering, but no one hires a black guy. Where this technique is full, suddenly a huge spider hit Nick's head in the forest. "Take it off," the man shouted, and Terrence obeyed. Turning on the video camera, Nick flew out of the car and gave a cheerful dance. Matches lay on the road. One shear and the advertiser's shoes caught fire. The dance finally became fiery. Terrence almost laughed and captured Nick's entire performance on camera, so that Terrence wouldn't want to rob another gas station. Nick took his gun away, but the cashier took it to arms, decided that these two robbers, and pointed a gun at them. Our hero had to take matters into his own hands.
Have you had really unlucky days?
Probably at this time today, Terrence was talking to his wife and seeing his partner, decided that he wanted to rob the store himself. Nick herself had paid the salesman for gas, a repossessed gun, a broken phone, or Terrence's day. He is indignant that he can't rob stores, and his whole traveling companion is so right. He also put his gun in his hands past our couple. Bandits drove by and got on their tail. They rammed Nick's car, and he flew to the side of the road. The bandits headed for the attack. Guns tyrants decided not to resist. The robbers do not like that they are competing on their territory. Two more criminal elements. Dante beat both of them. Davis mocked and demanded Nick give up his wallet, and Nick was once again blown off the roof. He taunts the criminal and tells him who he is.
A lazy weakling bully is simply a worthless, illiterate piece of crap.
Davis was about to shoot the insolent, but then Terrence intervened. His gun and the bandits had to put down their weapons, dispersed and accidentally fired, wounding Nick Terrence by shooting the wheels of the bandits' car so that they could not pursue them. "You hurt me," they mourn in the car. Nick then glues, moans and complains that his arm is numb, but when he took off his shirt, it turned out that he had a barely noticeable scratch on his arm. Terrence laughing and advised to wrap his limbs in ice. Perhaps it will be possible to retain some kind of approval. He decided to pick up truck drivers in the middle of the night, and they pulled him out of the car to walk. Davids pocketed Nick's card case and now knows where to look for him. The man has nowhere to spend the night, so Terrence invites him over. If anything, the thief's wife doesn't know what he's doing. And Terrence turned out to be not so male. He justifies himself to his wife, who reads him out for his late return. Just then his mother emerged and slapped him.
Don't dare your mother.
When his mother stops punishing him, Lisa also giggles at Nick's injury. The family is being shot on the street. They should move out of this harsh area. It turned out that Terrence had 2 children. If it weren't for poverty, this would be a glorious, happy family. Nick saw Terrence's diploma from the Electrical Engineering Institute on the wall. He also found many letters on his desk refusing to hire him. The next day, Terrence stole balaclavas, putting them in his pants. Next, his partners need to steal 2 lanterns. Nick asks not to shout or be rude to the cashier. He took the gun and looked into the eyes of the old man, insinuating quietly told him what he needed to do, and then asked to evaluate who was scarier, and the seller chose the screaming Terrence.
Don't you think he went too far?
No, I was scared. You were genuinely terrified too. Well, thank you.
Nick shouted at the buyer, and the old man thought it was much better. In the evening, the partners drove up to the office building, and Terrence broke a window to distract the security guard. That's how they got inside. The bandits drove up there and noticed the familiar car. Nick 1 climbed 19 floors. He dialed the code to disable the alarm, but it had already been replaced. Then Satish Terrence took over and rebooted the system. They have 5 minutes. But from the safe, the cat remained the same, and now they are already transferring a bunch of money in the bag. Then Nick turned his attention to their relationship with their boss and wife. Photo. He freaked out and gave the camera the middle finger. He loved it. Having flared up, the advertiser wanted to get back at his hands. He also cut off his giant tool. Nick finally tore off the roof. He took off his mask and told Naru everything they think about the wasp, turned on the alarm. But the comrades cannot leave the room. A guard appeared right in front of them. He was about to leave, but the trouble was that the lamp had a built-in radio and it turned on. The guard came back, probably the alarm clock, the man thought, and turned the radio to full volume himself. It turned out that he was a fan of dancing, and one that had been annealing for almost an hour and a half. The guard was sweating all over, and they even dozed off while he waited for the show to end. Terrence threw these white bandits at me. They waited for their target. Their partners rented a room at the hotel. Terrence is having fun and is already planning how to improve the lives of your loved ones. But Nick was not happy. He went down to the bar and got drunk. Revenge did not bring him satisfaction. Suddenly, Danielle the florist saw him flirting with him. The girl is also drunk and offers to proceed to her room. There was a knock at Terrence's room and he thought it was Nick Noah. There were his old friends in Daniel's room, as they could seduce Nick, but he couldn't all his thoughts about his wife. The bandits took all the money, and Nick decided to call, and she was very excited, because she didn't even know if her husband was alive. I saw everything talking, Nick. I got home early, and I know everything. The wife rolled her eyes. It turns out that she confused the dates and it was her sister who arrived with her boyfriend, and he found the boss's cufflinks in the kitchen. Nick laughed at first, but then remembered how much he'd done on the floor. He saw the bandits from Ernst trap the poor guy tied up, hanging from the balcony, and all that kept him was a sheet wedged between the doors. Nick thought he might have time to grab the fabric, and he did, but Darren relaxed too soon and fell anyway. However, he was lucky to land a floor below. Now you need to run for money. They rammed the bandits. They began to shoot back. Terrence grabbed the gun and returned the same. He punctured the robber's tire and they crashed into a pole. Davis put a cap on her and reasoned that there are killers and everyone else.
I'm a murderer, and who are you, Nick? I'm a family man.
Nick wounded Davis in the arm, and the scoundrel had to surrender. For some time, the bound bandits tried to free themselves, but the police had already arrived for them in a car. Terrence was upset to hear that they had to return the money because his wife had not cheated on Nick with the boss. The men began to fight, and Terrence jumped out of the car with his bag. Nick tries to persuade him. They only watch the recording if something happened. If you put the entire amount back, then no one will find out about anything, so he can. But this is my life. That's all I'll get my life back, Terrence says, and parts with the bag, returning home with nothing but no money. He is dear to his family. Nick was back at work. The secretary told Nick that vandals had broken into the office and smashed statues of her dignity. Right now, the police bosses are watching the tape. They just got to the location when the criminal took off his mask. But suddenly, the recording of Nick's incendiary dance came on, probably. The work of the electrician who came in this morning. Nick guessed what the electrician was. He is grateful to his friend and tells that he is going to change the security system in the office. And he has already advised one reliable person.